Welcome back to the Britannia Coin Company. We're a coin dealer based in Royal Wootton Bassett in the UK. With the recent death and now funeral of Queen Elizabeth II, many of us are wondering whether the Royal Mint is going to issue a memorial crown to mark her life. There's already been a number of tokens issued, but many of us still await Royal Mint news as to whether there will be a new coin for her. So today we're going to be looking at a number of other memorial coins marking the passing of some great individuals. We start with an historic queen, Queen Anne. In 2014, to mark the 300th anniversary of her death, this £5 crown was released. The coin was designed by Mark Richards, an individual who had previously created coinage to honour other royals, including Prince Philip's 90th birthday in 2011, and then in the same year the wedding of Prince William and Catherine Middleton. This coin features a small portrait of Queen Anne to the centre, surrounded by an ornate frame, and to the bottom you can see a small coat of arms of the Stuart monarchs before the Act of Union took place. Queen Anne's reign is notable for the formal joining of Scotland and England to form Great Britain in 1707, making Queen Anne the first Queen of Great Britain. She had reigned from 1702 after the death of her brother-in-law, King William III, and her reign would end in 1714. The process of joining the two nations began in 1603 when Queen Elizabeth I died with no heirs, and King James I was chosen to succeed her whilst already reigning as King James VI of Scotland, uniting the two nations under one crown. This £5 crown was released in 2001 to mark the 100th anniversary of the death of our second longest reigning monarch, Queen Victoria. The coin was designed by Mary Milner Dickens, whose other work on coins includes the 92-93 European Union Presidency, public libraries and suffragettes 50p's, so there's a good chance you've already come across her work in your change. Queen Victoria was our first monarch to celebrate a Diamond Jubilee, having reigned from 1837 to 1901, becoming another great woman that epitomised being British. She was the last ruler of the Hanover dynasty too, which had provided almost 200 years of consistent and stable leadership, with her descendants becoming the start of the Saxe-Coburg-Gotha rule, which would last until King George V, when it was decided that a less German name for the royal family would be more fitting as the First World War raged, with the royal family to this day being now the House of Windsor, named after the castle. The coin features a young portrait of Queen Victoria surrounded by a decorative iron frame of the Crystal Palace. It was built to house the Great Exhibition in 1851, which at the time was the largest glass building in the world, situated in Hyde Park. After the exhibition, the structure was later relocated, and it was an amateur football team established at the building, which would go on to be the Premier League football club we know today as Crystal Palace. Another historic monarch, King George III, would also be commemorated more recently on another £5 crown coin. This coin was designed by Dominique Evans, another artist you'll have seen the work of before, having also created the Diversity Built Britain and Decimal Day 50p's, Jane Austen and 2020's VE Day £2 coins, and a number of others too. The coin features a portrait of King George III to the centre and marks the 200th anniversary of his death. Around his portrait are images of his reign as our longest reigning king. He ruled from 1760 until 1820 and is our third longest reigning monarch ever. The last 9 years of his reign the king was in ill health, and his son ruled as Prince Regent in his name, who at the time of his father's death became King George IV and would rule for a further decade before his own death. With George IV's death being in 1830, which in another 8 years we will be marking the 200th anniversary of, perhaps he's a contender for a £5 crown coin in 2030. Time will tell on that one. This is all well and good though, but these are historic monarchs whose deaths are being commemorated centuries after the fact. So what about more recent royal deaths though? In 2021, on the approach to his 100th birthday, Queen Elizabeth II's beloved husband passed away after 73 years of marriage. To commemorate the life of Prince Philip, this coin was released later in the year to mark his life and work supporting the Queen in her role as sovereign, but also his own work as well. The coin was designed by Ian Rank Broadley, who had previously designed the Queen's 4th portrait on coinage. As Prince Philip worked on the Royal Mint Advisory Committee for many years and had an influence in the portraits of the Queen on coinage, there's a good chance they probably met before. It has been suggested that the Royal Mint was working on a coin to mark the Prince's 100th birthday. Whether that design was scrapped entirely or repurposed for this design, we won't know. But it is curious to think about another design that could be floating around in the Royal Mint's archives. Previously, in 2002, to mark the death of Queen Elizabeth, the Queen Mother, this £5 crown was released. Again issued in the same year as her death, it was designed by Admiral Vaughan, having also created the 1996 £5 crown to mark the Queen's 70th birthday. It would be quite interesting to know if senior royals get a say in the designer of a coin honouring them. The coin features the Queen Mother wearing the Greville tiara, an ornate tiara that the Queen Consort Camilla has worn in more recent years. The Queen Mother was married to King George VI from 1923 until his death in 1952. They were matched together by a socialite and mutual friend, Margaret Greville, who would later leave her the tiara which she's wearing on this coin. The Queen Mother's death was until the recent passing of Queen Elizabeth II, the most recent time that a member of the royal family has lied in state, with an estimated 200,000 members of the public attending to pay their respects to the Queen Mother, queuing for hours to get a moment to say goodbye, as we have seen with her daughter in her death. Notably, Prince Philip didn't lie in state, as this was contrary to his own wishes, and given that his death came at a time of great restrictions imposed on daily life due to the global health crisis, that might have been tricky to organise in a socially distanced manner. It isn't just members of the royal family whose death has been marked by the release of a commemorative coin though. In 1965, to mark the death of Sir Winston Churchill, this crown was issued with his portrait and surname on it. The coin was designed by Oscar Neyman, who is best known for over a dozen sculptures of Churchill. Winston Churchill was the Prime Minister of the United Kingdom between 1940 and 1945, and again from 1951 to 1955. He served in this capacity during the Second World War, and then at the time of the death of King George VI, thereby becoming the first Prime Minister of the newly crowned Queen Elizabeth II. This coin is also special in that it was the first coin struck to bear the portrait of a non-royal since Oliver Cromwell over 300 years before, with the Queen needing to approve this coinage as well. The coin, although very large for a circulating coin, proved extremely popular with the public, many wanting to keep them as a memento. There was a rather large amount of them minted though, so I'm sure that many of you already have a couple in your collection already. Later in 2015, this coin was issued to mark the 50th anniversary of the death of Winston Churchill. It was designed by Mark Richards, whose work we've looked at earlier in the video. The design again shows his portrait and surname around to the right. Being the first commoner in almost 300 years to feature on coins, perhaps we have this crown to thank for opening the door to the numerous commemorative coins we see today, marking the life and work of so many great individuals. The last coin we'll look at in today's video is this one here. Released in 2005, this £5 coin was issued to mark the 200th anniversary of the death of Admiral Lord Nelson. This was the creation of James Butler, a designer who the previous year had made the Roger Bannister 50p and has gone on to do a number of other coin designs too. Lord Nelson joined the Navy aged just 12, joining a ship commanded by his uncle, and by the age of 20 he became a captain in his own right. He is remembered as a bold and decisive captain, at times disregarding the orders of his senior officers. In one such instance, he held a telescope to his blind eye and claimed to have not seen the signal to withdraw at the Battle of Copenhagen, which resulted in a great victory for him and the Navy. Nelson's most remembered victory, though, was that of the Battle of Trafalgar in 1805, fought by the Royal Navy and the combined fleets of Napoleon's France and that of Spain. The battle was of paramount importance, with the threat of invasion by Napoleon. The Royal Navy was outnumbered, but the Admiral's tactics led to no loss of Royal Navy ships and the loss of 22 opposing ships. During the battle, Nelson's flagship, the HMS Victory, led the way into battle, and Nelson was shot by a French musketeer, later dying of his injuries. Nelson is also one of a handful of non-royals, including Winston Churchill, to have been granted a state funeral. Another individual of numismatic interest is that of Isaac Newton, the great scientist but also Master of the Royal Mint for many years. He was granted a state funeral in 1727, 70 years before Lord Nelson's. Well, we've looked at a range of memorial coins, whether marking notable deaths centuries ago, or great statespeople and royals more recently. Although we don't know for sure, Queen Elizabeth II is overwhelmingly deserving of a memorial coin to mark a life spent in service to her people. If we are right in assuming that the Royal Mint will be releasing a memorial coin to mark the great life of Queen Elizabeth II, then don't be surprised if that's out before the end of the year, because from 2023 coins will feature the portrait of King Charles III. If you're interested in any of the coins that have been featured in today's video, then there are links down in the description over to our website if you'd like to take a closer look yourself. Be sure as well to subscribe to the YouTube channel. It's free to do and means you won't miss out on any of our future uploads. We're also on Facebook and Instagram. We've got Twitter and TikTok. There's our shop and online store, but I'll see you next time for more amazing coins from the Britannia Coin Company.